to reality during and post COVID-19. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. Today we are presenting the topic Entrepreneurship Realization to Reality during and post COVID-19, presented by Dr. Mike Cheetam. He is from Manchester United and graduated in dental surgery with anesthetics. He is a qualified pilot, board captain, and an expert civil and criminal advisor in taxation and value-added tax. Now he is working as business development director of Hotpack packaging. Housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom, or you have the option of raise hand in control panel for asking your doubts. And please remind that we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, without further delay, we will turn over the time over to respected principal, Dr. Joske Jacob.
Good morning, one and all. Once again, welcome to the international webinar series on entrepreneurship realization to reality. So, as you know, the main aim of this program is to transfer the knowledge. So, majority participants are faculty members from various engineering colleges, and students are also participating. My humble request to all faculty members is that you must transfer this knowledge to all students you are representing. And this entrepreneurship concern, I think the creative thinking should be there to become a best entrepreneur. Dr. Mike is actually an international business consultant, and he is actually developing various strategies for all international companies. And we are very much delighted to have the presence of Dr. Mike. And I'm handing over the mic to Dr. Mike. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I hope you can hear me clearly. I come from the north of England, so I have a very strong northern accent. So I hope you can understand my bad English. I find that most of the people in Kerala speak better English than me. So if you can't understand me, if I am speaking too fast, then please slow me down. So what I'd like to do, I would like, first of all, to talk about the topic that this video stream is about, which is entrepreneurship. Secondly, I would like to talk about my own personal example of my 57 years and explain how I met with problems and how I tried to overcome them. Okay, so I'd like to share my screen. I hope you can see it on your computers. Perhaps you can give me some feedback if, so I'll share the screen now, which is this one, I believe. So is that sharing okay? Can somebody let me know that's clear? Is it clear? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, we can see this.
Superb, okay. Okay, so let's first of all look at the title, Strategies to Become a Successful Entrepreneur Post-COVID. I think the challenges faced post-COVID now are very different to those before this virus arrived. So let's look first of all at what is the definition of an entrepreneur. The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who sets up a business, taking on financial risk in the hope of a profit. Wikipedia defines it as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business usually with considerable initiative and risk. So it's a business, it's a financial risk, and the intention is to try and make a profit out of it. I would like to suggest that there are perhaps some better incentives in being an entrepreneur as well. So what should you do as an entrepreneur? Well, I think perhaps there's no better example than that of Mukesh Ambani from Reliance Industries, a very famous Indian who came home from Stanford University and asked his father, okay, I have my qualification now, I've been to one of the best universities in the world, what should I do now? And his father said, if I tell you a job or a role, you are nothing more than a manager or a worker. If you're an entrepreneur, you'll figure out yourself what to do. I think that's a very good lesson we should look at. So my advice, if I copied him today, would simply be, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm not going to tell you what to do, figure it out for yourself, which is what he was told by his father. But I think we need to go a little bit deeper. So if we look at Professor Sharma's advice, again, another very famous Indian academic, whenever his students came to him and asked what they should do for a thesis, a research thesis, he would say, I'm not going to give you a list of problems to solve. You find the problem, then I will first grade you on the quality of problem you find, then I will grade you on the quality of solution you devise. Okay, I think this is perhaps better advice when you want to be an entrepreneur, is you need to find the solution, find the problem first. Nobody is going to tell you what the problem is. If they are, then you're simply working for somebody else. So I think if I was to leave one slide at the end of this presentation, it would be this slide. So, what do we need to do first of all to be an entrepreneur? The first thing we need to do is find a worthwhile, real-world problem that society needs solved. I think when we look at the dictionary definitions, we don't see the society and the ethics involved in being an entrepreneur. If you want to concentrate, then you need to find a, sorry, is somebody wanting to speak? So finding the right problem is key. It's harder probably than finding the solution, because if you can find the right problem, then the solution will probably flow from that. It's important not to waste your time on fruitless problems which don't have commercial or ethical values. So, in my answer to the definition of a successful entrepreneur, it is someone who finds a problem and its solution must bring value to society. It should do good for the society and not just bring a focus on financial returns. You must have a passion for the subject. You must have a long-lasting passion, because being an entrepreneur takes many, many years, and it's something you need to do sometimes 20, 24 hours a day, and the solutions will not come fast. There'll be many problems along the way, and so you need to have an incentive and enjoyment from finding this solution. Most importantly, you need to be prepared for failure, and you need to be prepared for even more failure. Failures are a normal step on the road to success. If you've identified a true problem and you believe you have a worthwhile solution, then you must not give up. Most important as well These are all very important points which you should have as the backbone to becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to need finance, and it's very important that you treat the investor's money at least, if not more importantly than your own money, than your family's money. If you are ruthless and you lose the money and you're careless, then the business is destined to fail. So if you're passionate about it, if you take care of the investor's money, this will come across in your presentations, in your business plans, and it will attract external investors because they will see that you care about the subject, that you are focused on it, and most importantly, that you will take care of their money. Next, you need to make sure that as you start to build the team, you choose the right team members from the start. These are the foundations of the business, like building a tower in the middle of Kerala. If you don't put strong foundations in, then the rest of it will start to crumble, lean, fall over. You need to choose people who've got the same strength and passion and devotion to the problem that you want to solve. And most important, you should not just choose friends or family, you should choose people with the necessary skill set to complement your exact requirements. You should not compromise on the people that you choose around you. Okay. Can I just check, am I speaking too fast? Can people hear me okay? Are the slides okay?
Excuse me, sir. Everything clear? The sound is okay. Video is okay.
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 So, you cannot do anything without the right team. If you think of the structure of diamond, it starts with a very small crystal lattice based around a few atoms. But those atoms are very, very strong, and the rest of the atoms that come into the diamond lattice, they build upon the strength of the first structures. So I think it's very important that you choose people who will join you, who are strong, who will form a strong bond, and then as other team members come later on, they will fall into place automatically. Next thing, you have to be positive. To be an entrepreneur is not to be a pessimist. You have to be optimistic 1000% of the time, and especially with the team, and especially during times of problems, you need to make sure that you do not emit negativity or be cynical. You must be passionate and positive at all times. So, failures. Failures are inevitable, as I've said before. It's important to treat failures as character building. They make you stronger because you've been through that problem and you've solved the problem. They're educational because they make you wiser. But here's the important part. Smart entrepreneurs only make a mistake once. So, what about post-COVID? We are talking about entrepreneurial opportunities post-COVID. I'm sure that even in Kerala, where you have done remarkably well with very low death rates, mainly from people flying in, with very low infection rates, you have shown the world how good your medical system is, how good your lockdown is, and even around the world, it is widely reported that Kerala is an example, perhaps only surpassed by Vietnam. So the economic world has certainly changed. Personal values, commercial demands have made a quantum shift. What we don't know at the moment is whether or not these COVID changes in the economies of the world are permanent, or whether people will truly change their values. But at the moment, there are certainly strong winners and strong losers. let's look at some of the winners, some of the markets which are benefiting. These are the values that people have returned to during the COVID crisis. First of all, the food sector. We all need food. So the takeaways are doing very well. The supermarkets are doing very well. It goes without saying that hygiene and personal protection equipment, PPE, is doing very, very well as well. Now, as you're doing studies and degrees in these many of these topics, you need to think about which of these you might want to focus your energies. So healthcare, genetics, medicine, science and clinical research is going through the roof. Logistics, again, there's great opportunities for software developers to develop automated and most efficient delivery systems. Online retailing has gone through the roof. And then, of course, like we're doing now, remote technologies, e-commerce is obviously a boom area to look at. The utility companies are also doing very well at the moment. Everybody needs water, electricity, gas, telecommunications, mobile phones. So these seem to be the basics that people need to live with. And I think, as well as our families, people have learned in the COVID crisis to adopt new values. So if you want to play safe as an entrepreneur, you might like to look at these particular sectors because people now clearly value them more than ever before. The losers in this, at the moment, the top 7 losers is the financial sector. Banking, insurance, stock markets are certainly very wounded by the COVID crisis. Likewise, entertainment like cinemas, sports events, pop concerts, exhibitions are all suffering very badly. In Dubai, we have one of the best exhibition centres in the world, and the same in the UK, the NEC in Birmingham. They have all been turned into hospitals. The travel sector is, without needing to say, very badly hit. The airlines are on their knees. We're seeing job losses at all times. So again, if you're in engineering, you might want to think twice before entering the aviation sector. Cruise ships, shipping, holidays, it's all hotels, is all at a serious point in time at this moment. Catering and restaurants, again, suffering. Motor vehicles are just not being used at the moment. That is having a knock-on effect for insurance companies, for the oil sector, and also shipping, because they're doing a full spectrum of products, are suffering badly. My friends in the shipping sector are operating at 25% their capacity at the moment. So these are the losers of the COVID crisis. If I look at Universal Engineering College, at the subjects that you teach there, and I visited it last year, I was very impressed. Then we have civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electronics, electrical, communications, computer science, and science and humanities. So let's look at which of these sectors you might want to focus your entrepreneurial skills. I think it jumps out for hygiene and PPE. There's plenty of design opportunities to make equipment, to manufacture these products, and to develop innovative products. Already, we've seen people in Kerala making face visors from plastic sheets. We've seen people making ventilators in Kerala as well. So healthcare, genetics, medicine, and of course, science and clinical research. Logistics, obviously in the computer teams, you have the scope to develop swift and rapid logistics systems, and the online retailers, more and more companies now are going to become reliant on e-commerce. Remote technologies,
that's certainly an area that will need lots of development. And there are opportunities for engineering in the water and electricity, gas, telecom sectors. Okay, but there are also opportunities in the losers sectors as well. You might like to think of some of these if you can help these sectors turn around. You might want to come up with an innovative way to help the restaurants do online sales. You might like to, I will show you a few examples in a minute, but you'll see examples where cinemas, in fact, if I carry on, here in Dubai, the government closed down all of the cinemas. I'm sure it's happened in Kerala and India as well. So the cinemas have all been closed down, all of the events have been closed down, pop concerts, exhibitions. So that was a loser, but they showed innovation. They brought in technology and they decided to use one of the car parks bringing people to the shopping center now. So people are watching a film and at the same time after they're going shopping. Okay, here again we see students like yourselves showing innovation to build ventilators which are in demand around the world, and many of the students across India are trying to build medical equipment, in particular ventilators. And then you might have people who you think are winners. Again, if we talk about entrepreneurs, this is James Dyson, who invented the vacuum cleaner. And obviously vacuum cleaner is working with air, so it had a chance to use his technology to make ventilators. So the UK government backed him. He invested £20 million into it. And unfortunately, the UK government has decided not to use his ventilators. So as it says at the bottom, he invested around £20 million. For him, that was a gamble. He'll go back now to selling his cordless vacuum cleaners once again. So as an entrepreneur, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So one of my favorite topics when I speak in Kerala is I'm very concerned that the people of Kerala that I meet have extremely special skills. You have brilliant memories. You can remember everything, every conversation. I'm stereotyping, but I'm allowed to do that because I have so many friends from Kerala. You have brilliant memories. You have very fast brains. You can make very good business decisions. When there's a series of choices to be made, my friends from Kerala will always choose the best option. Often it's something I haven't seen. And so you need to understand that you have extreme skills. You have modesty, which is a very important attribute. But I would like you to think on a global scale. It's very important that whatever you start doing, you continually acquire new skills and qualifications. I will show you my own example of my 57 years of constant qualifications and new skills. And perhaps like the coronavirus, perhaps it has something to teach us that we should copy. We have seen how it's adapted to the world, it should be actually. We've seen how it has mutated and migrated to survive. And as an entrepreneur, you need to do the same. But I want you to think, as you become an entrepreneur, about how about where you become an entrepreneur. Because what I see in Dubai and what I see in Kerala is that people start there, they have the brilliant education, like from your college, they have the brilliant Kerala mind, you are multilingual. Brain makes them successful in the GCC. They go back home to Kerala. They build a beautiful house. I love when I come to Kerala, seeing all the beautiful, massive houses, bigger than anything we have in England, like the photos in the slide. And that's it. They stop. They have success in India, in Kerala. They have success in the GCC, and you stop. What I would like you to do as an entrepreneur is think very carefully about where you are an entrepreneur. This is Kerala in the map. And if we look at where the Keralites are mainly living at the moment, obviously 34 million of you in India. The UAE has 1 million. I think it's probably higher than that. I think it's probably closer to 2 or 3 million, certainly 2. United States is next at 500,000, Kuwait, Saudi, Qatar, Malaysia, Oman, Bahrain. Where the next largest one is 53,000 in Australia, which is not many. So my request is that you think about the rest of the world, please. The world is a big, big, big place, and I hope you will travel, and I hope that as an entrepreneur, you will think about the whole world, not just about Kerala and not just about the GCC. So, as we've done 26 minutes, I'll now like to talk about my own example as an entrepreneur and how I constantly changed my direction and tried to overcome the problems that came. As a child, I grew up. My father was a radio ham. He built radios with valves and later on with transistors. So from an early age, I had a soldering iron in my hand. And I loved computers. When the Z80 processor arrived, I hope some of your lecturers will remember the Z80. I built my own computer around the Z80. I think I was 12 at the time. And then as programming languages developed, I learned machine code, BASIC, Fortran, DBase, Pascal. So my love, my passion was for computing and electronics. But my parents always had a dream for me to be a doctor, and so they pushed me into being a doctor. My first degree I did was to do dental surgery, which I qualified in 1986. And then I went into practice, but it was very physically demanding, repetitive work, and always in the back of my mind, I had a passion for electronics. So to broaden my skills, I studied orthodontics, and then I decided I would go more into the medicine. So I studied in oral surgery and anesthetics, and we opened 2 specialist practices doing oral surgery. At that time, we did anesthetics in the surgery outside the hospital. So the first problem I faced was that in, I think it was 1990, there was a report called the Pozuelo report. And that decided, this is the report here, that decided that it was very, very dangerous to do anesthetics and fairly major surgery inside practices. And so a ruling was made that we had to close down and we had to stop doing surgery anesthetics in our clinics. So that was potentially the end of my business. But as an entrepreneur, I looked for a solution. The key thing is when you have a problem, to find the solution. So my solution was simple. I relocated into a hospital and continued doing oral surgery and anesthetics. But I was still looking for that opportunity. I wanted a business opportunity and to broaden my horizon, because as a doctor, I was seeing only a particular type of person. And for an interest as well, I joined the police. So in the daytime, I would work as a doctor, and in the night, I would actually have my police uniform on under my doctor's coat, and I would go and be a police officer sometimes for 8 or 10 hours at the night. Sometimes I got no sleep. So a new opportunity came along. Remember, as an entrepreneur, you must look for that opportunity. And what came my way, what changed my direction, was that there was a requirement for doctors and dentists to computerize. Nobody had computers. They were all writing their medical records on paper. And radiographs, again, were physical x-rays that we had to look at. The requirement came in 1992 that the doctors and dentists would have to connect and put all of their records on a computer so that they could be transmitted to the hospital with their patients. So, because I had a love of computing, I decided to use my passion. I contacted the British Medical Association and I created a position for myself as a lecturer for doctors, for dentists, and I traveled around the universities teaching them. They wanted to hear from a fellow doctor rather than a computer boffin. And so I continued for several years teaching doctors how to use computers. I also continued in the police. I wanted to improve my driving skills. I have to say, I have 8 driving tests, but I could never drive in Kerala. Your driving in Kerala is something quite unique. The way you overtake, I could never do that. I think you have to be born in Kerala to drive like that. So I toured the universities from 1992 to 1995, and I recognized a very good opportunity again. As an entrepreneur, the secret is to recognize the opportunities. As I began to train the doctors, they started to ask me, Mike, where can I get a computer from? How do I put in a network? And so I recognized the opportunity to buy the equipment, to install the equipment, to provide training for them, maintenance contracts for right across the UK. I was getting maybe 10 phone calls a day requesting hardware and software by my colleagues. So, 1993, I formed a specialist company called Bond House Systems Limited, and we provided IT systems support, networks, systems. We put everything in, and in the first year, we had £5 million of sales. I was lucky. I had an opportunity. I spotted it, and I used my knowledge and my passion of computers as an entrepreneur. Luckily, I hit the market just at the right time. I continued then to look for expansion outside of the medical field. I didn't want to become reliant just on medicine customers because I knew competition would be right behind me. And so we started to attack the general commerce and public sectors. I recognized that very early on in 1995 to 1998 that there was scope for online sales. This is in the very early days of Amazon, and I decided I would try and copy Amazon. I formed a separate company to do this called Target Components. Both these companies are still alive now, Target Components is perhaps the number 4 electronics computing distributor in the UK. It was dedicated for online sales of all IT components. As an entrepreneur, I tried to find the key brands that were emerging in the 1990s. Many of these are household names now, but at the time they weren't. So I was lucky that my company got distribution for Epson, for Gigabyte, for TP-Link, Hewlett-Packard, D-Link, Samsung, Western Digital, and Micron. So these kind of companies gave my company a strong backbone with quality products. And then I had a very big break. Again, as an entrepreneur, I spotted an opportunity. I would never stop looking for these opportunities, and that's what you must also do. Just because you find one opportunity doesn't mean you should stop looking. In 1995, there was a massive earthquake in Kobe in Japan. It caused one particular damage which caught my eye. It damaged a factory in Japan which made the glue which sticks the tops on integrated circuits. Not the integrated circuits themselves, but the actual glue that sticks the caps on. And there was only one of these factories in the world. There was no redundancy. So I recognized that this glue was in particular used in memory chips, and that there was no other factory that could do the volumes of glue that I could find. So I recognized that prices were going to go up very early, and I bought every memory chip I could find across Europe. I rang every key distributor. In those days, we didn't have email. We had to send everything by fax. So I sent a fax to every supplier I could find, and I bought up all of the European memory chips that I could find available. I then sent out a fax shot, a bit like an email circulation, to all of the system builders on my database in UK and Europe. Within the next day, within a week, I had sold out all of the memory chips, and my company was known as a specialist chip manufacturer. So we continued with this. From 1995 to 2000, we had organic growth. By the, I think it's on the next slide, we were turning over £100 million in computer chips. We broke into the European market, the US market, and Asia. We built our own. These chips were very, very high value. In a shoebox this size, you would perhaps have up to £1 million sometimes. Of the latest chips, they were extremely valuable, especially the Xeon CPUs. But in a car, you would easily have £1 million of value. So we increased our sales to 50 million. We built the team up to 70 traders. We built our own custom bank vault with an armored building in it. And we started joining an online platform. We developed our own online platform with one of our friends just to trade chips. So these chips became a commodity with a worldwide demand for it. We thought everything was going well. And then the criminals recognized that these chips were extremely valuable. They were basically unmarked. And so if you stole them, you could sell them anywhere at face value. If you stole it for $100, you could sell it for $100, maybe even make a profit. So the armed criminals started to attack our business. And as you can see from here, we had several robberies. We had £4.6 million of chips stolen. We had £6 million of chips stolen. And they would even dress up as police officers, and they would steal police cars and actually stop our vans and rob the vans in police uniform. So it was a very scary time. Again, as an entrepreneur, we have to find a solution. Our insurance companies would not insure us. They stopped all insurance after we had lost nearly 10 million pounds of chips. So my solution was to learn to fly. I became a pilot. I qualified with instruments, night flying, and I bought a small aircraft. And then each day I would fly from Heathrow Airport to nearby to our warehouse, or I would deliver the chips directly across Europe. And so as an entrepreneur, when it looked like we were going to be closed down, we found a solution and we continued to trade. We were hitting sales of around £1 million per day. In my aircraft, I could fit about £1.5 million of chips. So I was flying around with a very valuable aircraft, very valuable aircraft. We had 120 employees, and the online trading company was turning over £50 million. I was quite happy. I thought nothing could go wrong. By the way, I have about 5 minutes more, and then I will stop for questions and answers. So things were going very well. I had a fabulous life. What could possibly go wrong? Well, unfortunately, the criminals who came into our sector also started to steal tax. There was a very elaborate tax fraud, like a GST fraud, which the criminals could make millions of pounds a week. And so they started to attack our sector. Because these chips were very liquid assets, really the same as gold, they could be sold anywhere in the world at face value. The criminals started to money launder and steal tax using our chips. And so in 2002, we had a visit from the customs officers. They turned up at my office and said, sorry, we owe you £13 million, but we're not going to pay you back, and closed us down. They closed the business down within a month, and we lost absolutely everything. We were completely shut down. So, as an entrepreneur, dealing with problems, as I say, there will be ups, there will be downs. I became a semi-politician. Here's an article where I appeared before the House of Lords. And I also became a part-time lawyer. If you actually look on the BBC website, you'll see they made an hour-long documentary about how I went from being a doctor to policeman to fighting the UK government. And I took the case all the way to the European Court. I lost in the UK court. I lost in the second court in the UK. So I became a part-time lawyer, and I took the case over 6 years to the European Court. And I'm pleased to say that eventually we won the case. my final change of career. So I've been a policeman, been a doctor, dentist, a lawyer. My final change now is I worked producing tax advice. I worked as an expert in criminal cases and civil cases for tax. VAT is something similar to GST, and I developed, with my technology background, blockchain solutions to stop the tax being stolen. And we have published, with a professor friend of mine, we have published in many of the tax journals around the world. We're just writing one about India at the moment. Here's a solution, a technical solution, how to stop the tax fraud. I was invited last year, 2018, sorry, to make a presentation to the European Court on taxation, VAT, and technology. So again, I've used my skills, I've used my experience in the fraud, in the fighting the court case, and become an expert in tax. Finally, my greatest job. I wish I'd done it sooner. I joined as a business development manager with Hotpack in the UAE, and now I never thought I would find packaging interesting, but now I'm working in packaging with some very gifted founding members. I think you will know Mr. Abdul Jabbar in the bottom left. I know he's speaking to you later on, and I'm sure that his speech will be much more interesting than mine. So, final. The days of a job for life are gone. When I was younger, the Japanese companies like Toyota would promise their workers a job for life. Even as a doctor, I think I've had 7 different careers. And there are some lessons we can learn from COVID as an entrepreneur. You need to look for new opportunities. You need to adapt and mutate and explore these opportunities properly. You must learn new skills. It's a lifelong learning curve. And most importantly, and unfortunately, like COVID, please, as a Keralite, look for global opportunities, not just in India, not just in the GCC. Thank you. I believe it's question time. Do we have any questions? Hi.
Hello. So if you have any doubts, you can ask to sir.
Mike. Mike is fine, not sir. And you are muted. You'll need to unmute your microphone.
We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel, or you can raise your hand to ask questions.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hello, sir. Can you hear?
Yes, I can,
Hi,
Rekha.
sir. I'm Rekha. Sir, my question is, how can we find
You're quite broken, I think, actually. Try again. I don't. Oh, I see the question answers now. Sorry, I see now. Yeah. Can the activation in entrepreneurship protect the economy from forecasted slowdown in the economic growth? Absolutely. It's a simple yes. I don't need to expand on that. Yes, we need young entrepreneurs to fill the gaps now. There is significant demand in the sectors that I've identified. So we need you to get out into the big world, please. Identify the gaps and fill them in as quick as possible, please, especially in the areas of medicine, in medical engineering, in IT. There's a huge gap.
Hello.
Hi,
Mike. Yeah. So I'm Ashwati. I work as a professor in the engineering college. So my doubt was like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and most of my students would also like to. But then being in Kerala and having completed education up to my post-graduation, what I find is that something is lacking in our education system that makes it really difficult to understand the passion inside us. Okay, I'm 30 years old now, and I sometimes feel doubtful what my passion is and what I actually want to do even at this age. So what do you think needs to be embedded into the Kerala education system that makes us more like real-time entrepreneurs and people who understand what they really want and what's passionate to them at an earlier age in their lives, so that we don't make mistakes in choosing our career? What do you think is lacking in our education system?
I think you're very gifted, and we are stereotyping. I should not stereotype, but as I say, I've been to Kerala. I work. All my friends are from Kerala, so I'm allowed to make my observations. I think you're extremely talented, intelligent, gifted state of people. But the problem is you're very modest. You're too modest. You're too reserved. You're not outspoken enough. I think the solution I would suggest is to travel. Most of the real entrepreneurs I have seen, like Mr. Abdul Jabbar of Hotpack, like Yusuf Ali from Lulu, they've traveled. So I think that's something you need to do. The Indian passport is now one of the best passports you can have. You can travel to many countries, and you need to take the blinkers off your eyes, and I think you need to travel. When you travel, you will bring back many ideas from around the world, and it will focus your passion on what is most appropriate for you. You will also see how much your education and your upbringing can give to the rest of the world. I mean, what the Keralites have done in Dubai, that the backbone of Dubai economically really is down to the Keralites. If you look at any significant business here, it is a Keralite at the top of it. Why can't you do that around the world? So my answer to your question is, I understand the reluctance. When I was a doctor, I would lecture to other doctors and say, you know, you're treating patients every day. You have this amazing education, you have these communication skills where you have to talk to patients about their life, about their death, about sickness, their families. Why can't you use those skills outside of medicine and go into business? Because it's much easier in business than dealing with someone and telling them that they're going to die. And they're, like you say, reluctant, they're scared, they want to stay inside their safe environment. So my advice is that you need to travel. It's the travel that brings that wisdom and opens up your inner strengths.
Thanks a lot, Mike. That was really inspiring. And I'll get back to you when I'm a successful entrepreneur one day. Okay? Yeah. Thank you.
I should say one more thing. There is a myth, an urban myth in Kerala and all of India, that traveling is difficult. Getting a visa is difficult. It's not. It's not. So long as you can get the money for the flight and book a hotel, as long as you can answer the questions properly, then traveling is not difficult at all.
Okay, Mike. Thank you. Thanks once again. Yeah.
That's a good question about the pandemic and how can you raise finance. The reality at the moment is that the banks have been given huge funding. All of the countries around the world, the UK is printing £51 billion per month. Our normal national deficit is £11 billion a month. At the moment, it's 62 billion a month being printed. This is being pumped into the economy. This is being pumped into the banks. In America, they've added $4 trillion to the national debt. So at the moment, the banks are very free with money. If you want to go for them for funding, for loans, certainly in this region and in Europe, The banks are willing to listen to anything. And there are also lots of entrepreneurs, there are lots of investors who are looking for a entrepreneur that can sustain through this pandemic. So I think it's a good opportunity. It's now more than ever. Somebody asked, how did I get your idea or concept for the business? The answer is, I constantly look. Whenever I see the news, whenever I speak to somebody, the back of my brain is always thinking, how can I turn that into a business? I know Mr. Abdul Jabbar, our managing director, as he travels around the world, he's always looking at the packaging opportunities, at machines, and constantly he's looking to expand his repertoire within a company. So you need to never stop thinking. You need to ask yourself, is this a good business opportunity? So I think we're 53 minutes into it now. I hope you've got some good ideas from this, and I'm happy to. Who was my role model? I didn't really have one, really. There were not many doctors who broke out of medicine. Probably I've only met 20 doctors who decided to go out of the career. It's like Kerala. It's a safe bubble. Nobody wants to break out of their cocoon. The psychologists call it pattern breaking. We like to stay in the same thing, same place all the time, in our comfort zone. You can't be an entrepreneur if you do that. No, I didn't have support from anyone. I went to the banks. As I said in my talk, I chose the right people around me. I chose a skilled accountant who came in, he wrote a business plan for me, and the bank offered us a £10 million overdraft just on the basis of his business plan and my passion. Okay, are we done for today?
I am Rekha.
Hello, Rika.
Yeah.
I can hear
How
you.
can we find a good investor for our project?
You have to write a business plan. You have to write a business plan, and you have to go and knock on doors. You have to.
Sir, when we reveal the project idea, if somebody is taking it and if they have money, they will start their businesses their own. So how can we protect that idea? And at the same time, we need some investor. So how can we find a solution for this?
Well, it is possible to patent. We have filed quite a few patents over the years, and in India, you have a very good and very cheap patent system. So if it's something that can be patented, then before you present it, you should patent it. The other thing you can do as well, we will always make people sign a non-disclosure agreement. So it's worth having a lawyer sign an NDA, either a non-disclosure agreement or a non-circumvent agreement, or patent it.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
For sure. There's a question here, what should an introvert do as an entrepreneur? Not everybody's outspoken or loud like I am sometimes.
Hello. You.
So, yeah, answering the question on the introvert, my answer is that you have a great opportunity because you can hide behind a computer. You can do your entrepreneurial development from behind a keyboard without having to meet people very often. Sorry, Goodwin, you were asking a question. Godwin, sorry. Godwin, I can hear you.
So I guess my final tip before we close this would be that if you can get the money together, try to travel, try to get some experience of other countries. Will all countries economically survive post-COVID? I guess they will, because at the end of the day, the governments can print money. And they're doing that now at the moment. So they can simply print money and put it into central bank. I'm not sure how that's taught in the economics classes, but it's happening at the moment. We're seeing, as I said, $4 trillion printed in the US. So the only solution seems to be to print money. In terms of finding investment, I think your first option would be the bank. The banks are quite receptive to business plans, but you need to make sure you get your presentation and facts very, very professionally prepared. I'm sure that your colleagues will help you do that. I'm always happy.
It looks like we have covered all our questions. Is there anything else you want to cover before I wrap up? Anyone? Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. On behalf of Universal
Eric, I will say thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you all. I look forward to my next visit to your college very soon.
Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Serious. Now, I would like to remind about tomorrow's webinar, and we will have Mr. Munir Al Wafa on the topic Emerging Technology to Live with